Okay guys, so I'm back with part 2. I got my drinks here. So hopefully that will help me a little bit. If you hear noises, it's my washer and dryer in the background. Oh, and I think I said in my last video, I'm going to have the link for these stories down below. If I ever make like a video with like reading from articles, they're always going to be linked in the description. So I'm sorry, I know I keep looking away from the camera. Right now I'm holding the camera because I'm charging my phone and it won't stand up on here. So yeah, let's just get right into the video. The guy from Craigslist. Sorry, let me just get another drink. In 2007, I went on a date with a guy from Craigslist. I was 17 years old at the time. Don't ever do that, guys. I put an ad up looking to meet someone. I don't remember the details. A guy responded who lived close to me, and so I emailed back and gave him my number. He was actually one of the only ones who responded without a creepy message. He said his name was John, and he was 26 years old. Sorry, guys, my nose just stopped up. This guy, John, and I spoke for 2 days before meeting, and we met on a Friday night. We texted back and forth, and he asked if I was single. I said yes. He asked what kind of food I like to eat because he wanted to take me to a restaurant. I asked him a few questions about himself. He told me he still lived with his mother but had the top floor to himself and that he was part-time model that made good money. Judging by his picture, him being a model was fairly believable. So on Friday night, John came to pick me up. Sorry. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to burp. Excuse me. He drove a silver two-door car. I went to say Ford. He popped me a message to say he was waiting outside, and after checking my hair and makeup one last time, I said goodbye to my parents, telling them I was heading out with friends, and left. I got into John's car, and the first thing I noticed was that he looked exactly like his photo, the tall, dark, and handsome type. He had pale skin with dark hair and dark eyes. He looked a little older in person, but he made up for it with a snappy fashion sense. He looked cool and cute. He was incredibly kind, and his body language and smile totally put me at ease. Yes, it's really stupid to go on a first date from Craigslist, but surprisingly, this guy was normal. We chatted for a while as he started driving away from my hometown towards the highway. He wanted to drive us into the city to go to dinner, which wasn't too far, around a 25-minute journey. John started to reveal more details about himself to me on this journey. He told me he was embarrassed to tell me he lived with his mother, that I might think bad of him for not having my own place at his age. John got closer and closer to the highway, and I couldn't tell you what it was. I won't make it up because I don't remember, but it wasn't anything remotely creepy. I just felt put off by him. You know when you're on a date with someone and you're not sure, and then they tell you something that's your biggest turnoff? It was that kind of situation. Again, he didn't say anything too creepy, just off-putting. As we're getting closer and closer to the turnoff, I tell this perfectly nice guy, I'm really sorry. I don't feel like going to dinner anymore. I'm not feeling well. John's initial reaction was sympathy. What's wrong? Are you okay? Is it my driving? I told him I just didn't feel well. John then kept asking me, what did I say? What did I do? I told him it's not him, it's me. I just wanted to go home because I felt ill. Then he said, okay, let me just drive around for a little bit before I take you back. I don't want to end the evening like this. I knew that without him driving me home, I'd have to walk over an hour, maybe more. So I told him that driving for a bit sounded like a fine idea, but instead of him turning around and going back towards mine, he veered off and started heading to the town I knew he lived in. I should mention it was pitch black out, and the town where John lived was surrounded by dense woods. This isn't even worth mentioning if you take the highway and proper turnoffs to get there, but he decided he wanted to go via the back roads because it was more scenic, despite the fact I couldn't see a thing. John had gone from being incredibly talkative to almost completely silent. He kept driving farther into the wooded area. A few times I'd ask him questions about himself to break the awkward silence. At one point, I put my hand on his knee, affectionately, trying to regain the friendly, flirty banter we had earlier. He blanked me for the most part, occasionally answering in soft grunts or nods. It was like he was having a tantrum. John pulled into the parking lot for the forest. It was It was around 9 p.m., so naturally it was totally empty. He slowly kept driving, looking around for other cars, and then parked himself up right at the end and close to the woods. There was nobody else in the parking lot, and I hadn't even seen us pass other cars to get there. For 10 minutes, he just sat there, staring in the darkness ahead, which was disturbing. I think I managed to make small talk for maybe 5 minutes, which is a long time when someone isn't talking back. Then I joined him in his silence. I was afraid of appearing fake. I didn't want him to think I was scared. So, some time of silence goes past, and abruptly John gets out of the car, closes the door, and locks the car. I was stuck inside. His lights were on, so I could sort of see ahead. In front of the car was a field that maybe went on for about 20 feet, so really a patch of grass, and then beyond that were trees and dense forest. To the left was the right of the car park and exit at the far end, and to the immediate right was more forest with a small path. John disappeared into the forest ahead. I think it's going to continue on to the next page. Guys, this story is so long. I tried the handle on the door, wouldn't open. I began to rationalize this. Maybe he accidentally locked the door. I was telling myself if he really wanted to do something, he'd have stayed in the car. With the side of John, I decided I needed to call someone. I looked around for my phone and couldn't find it. This was an old silver pay-as-you-go flip phone. I was confused that I couldn't find it because I had put it right next to me in the cup holder. After looking for it for a few good minutes, I became sure he had taken it. Mind you, I didn't want to start rooting around his car knowing he might be watching me. I didn't want him to catch on. I was freaking out. At that point, I started looking for my phone with only my eyes instead of making it obvious. I was petrified this guy was watching me panic in the darkness. My eyes darted all around the floor. Nothing. Sorry, I was just reading something again real quick. I looked up and squinted at the field and forest ahead. I saw him. John was standing about 10 feet from the car on this small field. He was standing and smiling. It wasn't a friendly smile. He looked freaky. This was not the same guy I got in the car with. I looked ahead and smiled back. I was still trying to act like his behavior was normal and like nothing he was doing was scary. Still smiling, his tongue began to protrude from his mouth. He stuck it out all the way, began wagging his tongue up and down while maintaining eye contact with me. I felt myself trembling. I was trying to compose myself, not taking his eyes off me with his tongue still out. He started unzipping his pants. He took out his D and proceeded to urinate in front of me while staring at the whole time. This is the point I found it difficult to act like I was in on his behavior. I looked down at the floor, not wanting to watch what was in front of me. Excuse me. He didn't creep or slink back to the car. Instead, I hear his thundering steps and then I slam against the window. I guess at the point I was the luckiest person alive because another car pulled into the parking lot. I don't know what this did to John, but immediately he got back into the car and laughed at me. That normal laugh and said, "So what music do you like? I'll put it on while I drive you home." And he did. He drove me all the way home. When we pulled up to my house, I went for the door, but it was still locked. "I want you to promise me something." I asked him what it was. If you ever see me after this, turn the other way. Act like you don't know me. If you see me with my family, don't dare say a word. I don't expect to bump into you, but don't say anything. I agreed and then asked him, "Have you seen my phone?" He told me no. I guess my phone was a small sacrifice for surprisingly making it home okay. When I got in, I said goodnight to my parents and went upstairs to my room and turned on my computer. I wanted to gather as much information about the guy as I could. Back then, I used MSN Messenger like AIM. It logged in automatically whenever I started up my PC. Now, before I get to the final part of the story, it's important to know this. One day before I had been at my friend's house, we had the kind of friendship where it was like we could pick on the other the most. It was all fun and we mostly just ripped the shit out of each other and had a laugh. The day before, she had changed 2 contacts in my phone. An old prank replaced with the contact mom with a guy I had been sending sexual texts back and forth with. I immediately knew she had done this because I saw the previous messages come up, but I didn't change the numbers back at the time, thinking I'd do it later. So when I logged onto MSN, I had a ton of messages. I had a ton of messages from this guy and a few from my best friend. When John had locked me in the car, he had taken my phone and texted Mom, telling her that I'm sorry, but I decided to move out. I met someone. Please don't look for me. I'm happy being left alone. So another thing about the message was it was all written in text speak. Swap please, for example. And this guy knew I never texted like that. Aside from the message itself, this was a big red flag. He had texted me back. He showed me on cam. We're texting again saying, I don't think this is you. Know where you went, calling the police. This was incredibly quick thinking as he had absolutely no idea where I was. I think that text saved my life that night, and it explains John's sudden change of behavior. If it wasn't from the random car, it was the text. I want to say it was definitely the text that saved you, but also the car could have saved you too. It was probably both. Honestly, this guy was fucking weird. That was a long-ass story. Trying to keep my throat good and hydrated and stuff, but I might have to go blow my nose. That was a long-ass story, man, but it was good. It was scary. It makes me never want to see another man again. I'm sorry you had to go through that, though. I'm very, very sorry. Okay, so thank God this next one's a little bit shorter. Tapping. When I was around 11, I lived in my parents' basement, and I was woken one night around 2 a.m. by tapping on the window. The tapping kept going for about 20 minutes and scared the crap out of me. I never opened the blinds to see who had climbed down the ladder to our basement well, but I have always wondered about it since it never happened again. I wonder if it was a ghost. Maybe it could have been a ghost doing it or something. You never know. This one's a little bit longer. The worst customer. I used to work at a pub chain in Canada. Sorry, I said China, it's Canada. I used to work at a pub chain in Canada called Elephant and Castle, and the owners of that particular franchise were absolute dicks who didn't care about their staff. I've since learned that they had been shut down, so that's something. On Thursday and Saturday nights in particular, it would get pretty rowdy because of hockey and some pretty good happy hour deals. We had this one regular, a pretty huge guy who would constantly cause browners with me. He would try to drag me onto his lap when I was serving him and his buddies. He would grab my butt even after I straight up yelled at him and even slapped him once. I begged my managers and the owners of the pub to ban him, but that didn't happen. The best they would do was to kick him out if he went too far, which usually involved him grabbing me in some way. He was always free to return the next day, though, because he was a good customer. On Saturday, I was on my cigarette break in the alley beside the bar when that effer snuck up and grabbed me around the waist and started to drag me backwards. I immediately went to fight or flight mode, and smashed my head backwards into his face. Ended up breaking his nose pretty badly. And when he dropped me, I laid on the ground and kicked up into his area several times. When I had a moment to think and realized who it was who had attacked me, I took my lit cigarette and put it out on his arm. I think I did a fair bit of screaming and I spat on him as well. I was really, really angry / afraid, and I don't have a very clear memory of the rest of the night. I guess the bouncers arrived at some point and the cops were called. The cops came and I gave my statement. The guy got arrested. I quit that job and never returned to that shitty pub. I never got a chance to find out what happened to the guy or even what his motivations for grabbing me were, because I moved to Scotland a few months later. I read another story in another article where the guys or the owners, the bouncers, they just didn't give a crap. And that's what I hate about places like that. The owners should care about their workers. They should honestly be better at their jobs and look out for their employees and stuff. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Should look out for their employees and stuff. So let me just get another drink. Finished my tea, but I got water, so we should be good. Okay, this next story. He said he wanted lottery tickets. An expensive-looking car was parked outside a video rental store, and as I walked past, an old-looking man opened the passenger door and held a $500 SEK bill, $60, and asked if I could go into the video store and buy him some lottery tickets. I complied, and he said, "Don't run away with that money now. That's happened to me before." I went into the store. They didn't have any lottery tickets, and went back to his car and told him the news and handed the money back. He asked me to sit down in the passenger seat, and I complied, naive and gullible as I was. He asked me to close the door, but I said no at this point after a bit of deliberation and got out of the car and closed the door. I didn't think much about this until about 5 years or so later, when I realized just how close I was to probably being kidnapped. Yeah, it sounded like he wanted to kidnap you. Girls, you gotta be careful out there. Guys, too. We all have to be careful. Oh, if you guys want some creepy women stories, just let me know down below, and I'll probably do that, too. So, yeah. Let's just get into these next stories. But if you want creepy women stories, too, let me know down below, because women can be creepy, too. Women are just as creepy as men. I was at a friend's house one night, and this is called The Masked Men, I think I said. I was at a friend's house one night. There were several of us over watching TV, drinking, smoking, etc. Just hanging out, being kids, whatever. All of a sudden, several masked guys with handguns burst in the back door and start screaming. Everyone gets on the floor. At this point, I know exactly what's going on. I was familiar with similar scenarios already at this point in my life, so I was thinking, just be cool. They'll get what they want and leave. However, one guy who was doing all the talking, starting pistol whipping and kicking people, mainly one of my friends, let's call him Jeff, who was in the front of the room. All of a sudden, we hear a gunshot. Gunshots in small rooms are freaking loud. I've been around guns for most of my life, at ranges, hunting, etc., but never in a small closed room. My ears are ringing, and I'm thinking, that effing moron just put a bullet in the ceiling. The cops will be here any second. Then all was quiet for a couple of seconds. We slowly get up and look around. Everyone except Jeff. The would-be burglar had shot him through his armpit and both lungs. He died about 30 seconds later on his living room floor, all for nothing. The police didn't get there for half an hour. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This is one of the saddest things I've ever heard. It makes me sick. I hope those guys went into... I hope they went to jail. I really do. I'm so sorry for your friend. So sorry for your loss. That is so sad. I don't know how you can move on from that, but I'm going to try. Even though that was super sad. So this next one's pretty long too. It's called In the Alley. I was 15 and me and my friends were walking home from basketball practice when we took a random alleyway as a shortcut to buy drinks from a nearby store. We saw in the corner of the alley 2 big and muscular Lebanese guys holding this small woman down on the floor, squirming and covering her mouth with their hands. One of the guys was taking his pants, and me and my friend knew immediately that they were going to R-word her. I didn't know that was in the story, so I'm sorry. Trigger warning, R-wording. I'll probably put it in the description below. Without thinking, my friend and I threw our sports bags at their head, rushed in, and tried to knock them to the floor. They were too strong, and one of them started beating up my friend while the other choked me out. I for sure thought I was going to die, but the woman managed to pull his hair back and poked him hard in both eyes. While he was stunned, we both pushed him to the floor, and I started kicking him in the nuts incredibly hard. His other friend let go of my friend and charged at me, but my friend and I both tackled him to the floor, and we told the woman to go get help. We held him down long enough until she came back with several construction workers who had drills and hammers in their hands. We called the police, and they came out and arrested them. In the end, my friend had a shattered collarbone, a bruised eye, and a broken rib, while my nose had been broken. The lady, I don't know, we never saw her again, or those bastards. Scariest moment ever for me, and it made it worse than that everybody in my school heard about it the next day. You did a good thing for, like, saving that woman, though, so good on you guys for helping her, stepping in, because we all know about the bystander effect, where somebody just thinks another person will call the police and all that. So it's a good thing that you stepped in and helped this poor woman out. Otherwise, she probably would have been hurt and scarred for the rest of her life. Okay, so this next one is I saw his eyes. This one's a long one. For a little background, I'm a 27-year-old female, and I recently just moved into a nice apartment in a safe neighborhood with my two dogs, Charles and Wigwam. Oh, Charles is a Corgi/German Shepherd mix and is the most loving but overly anxious dog, while Wigwam is a Lhasa Apso. I'm sorry, I can't say that. Lhasa Apso, who is quiet, sweet, and most definitely scared shitless of his own shadow. I've only been in my new place for about a month, and after this experience, I highly doubt I'm going to make it here for the duration of my year-long lease. The way these apartments are set up is that each floor has its own set of doors that lead to 4 apartments and a fire escape door. That only opens from the inside. I'm on the back side of the building, which places my patio about 10-ish feet from the fire escape stairs. I take my dogs out 3 times a day. Midnight being the latest, I will go out by myself, and every time I leave my apartment, I put the bar lock on my patio door and lock my front door without fail. About a week ago, we had a snowstorm, and I had cracked my patio door because, well, I love cold weather, and I'm a freaking adult, and if I want to watch the snow fall, then I could do as I please. Mistake 1. I let my guard down because I'm a stubborn twat. It was around 11 p.m., and I decided that since it was getting late, I should take the dogs out for the night, and since they both hate snow, this would be a quick trip. I go to lock the patio door and decide against it because I'm on the freaking 5th floor, and I'm already going to be outside for a few minutes. I get the dogs ready, grab my keys, and lock my door as I leave the apartment. I get down to the designated pet area with my beloved snow-hating dogs, and then let them to do their thing, and then back to the apartment we go, and we get back in safely, or so I thought. This is where I thought I was losing my mind, but in actuality, shit was about to get real. As soon as we walked into the apartment, my dogs ran over to the patio door, and I noticed the door is shut and the bar is locked. Mistake 2. I immediately think that's strange, but didn't connect the dots. I go into the kitchen to get dogs treats, and both dogs start going batshit crazy and growling at a large cedar chest in my living room. As I'm walking to see what all the commotion is about, I see a pair of eyes creeping from under the chest lid. I stood there for about 5 seconds before I realized what I was seeing and calmly walked backwards to my front door, opened it, and told my dogs, "Let's go outside." And they ran out without leashes, and I immediately get them and myself in my car, lock the doors, and call the police. The police show up in less than 5 minutes, and they go up to my apartment, and after about 20 minutes, 2 officers are dragging a 40-ish-year-old F-tard out of my building in cuffs, and the plot thickens. This dude has been watching me since I moved in and has been staking out my place, waiting for an opportunity to get inside my house. He knew I lived alone. If that's not creepy enough, already. He had a fanny pack since it's still 1990, and he had a pocket knife, needles, ketamine, and a picture of me from the day I moved in. And his plan was to sneak in through my patio door, wait for me to fall asleep, and God knows what else. Needless to say, I didn't sleep for days because I thought he would come back. Luckily, the bastard is still in jail, but I'll never forget those eyes. That is freaking scary. That is so terrifying. Let me just set this phone down real quick so I can open my water. Sorry, guys. That is just crazy. I've read like a little bit and piece of this story from the beginning, like earlier. Like I read like the last part, or like when he said he was gonna go through her patio door and wait till she falls asleep. He said I was fertile. On a rainy night in the era before cell phones, I was 18, walking a very long way home from work. I foolishly accepted a ride home from a strange man, small-town girl living in her lonely world, and I had just gotten off a double shift. He was elderly, acted genuinely concerned for me, and I saw a Bible in the back seat. Probably safe, right? The car was old and broken down, and he had to get out to open the door for me. It took him a while as he had trouble walking with a bum leg. He told me the passenger door didn't open from the inside. I immediately felt weird, but years of nice girl training told me he's gone so much trouble. Don't say no. We chatted for a while, and he politely complimented my uniform and my hair and told me I looked like his late wife and that her spirit must have led him to help me get home. It sounded very sweet the way he told it. The conversation turned to if I was still in school, what my hobbies were like, and gradually turned to whether or not I was on my period, which was rude, but he acted like it was going to be the punchline of a joke, so I laughingly asked him why he would want to know. He said very calmly, because if you're fertile, we should start trying for a family right away. Oh, shit. That's what I was thinking. Oh, my God, that's crazy. He said God had kept him lonely for years, but now, because I looked so much like his late wife, it was clear I was meant to be his, so he could start life over again and finally have lots of children like his wife was unable to do. He grabbed my hand and kissed it and said, I can't wait to show you our new bed. I told him I forgot something at work. He told me I could get it tomorrow. I told him I needed to pee, and he said I could hold it until he got home. He wasn't going to let me out. He kept talking about how things were different back then and how men are the head of the household, that women are to follow their fathers and their husbands, and God says this and God says that. He talked about his wedding day, how his wife's father had given her to him. So I blurted out, you're going to get my father's permission to marry me before taking me to your home, right? God would want that, right? You need to do that, because otherwise we would be living in sin, and the marriage bed is not holy, which I remembered from many days of church sermons. He got offended then and said he knew the Bible better than I did, and of course he needed to ask my father for permission. I told him that we couldn't live together in sin and we should go to my house before going home. And I reminded him that the street wasn't far. Still trying to keep the conversation light and joking, I told him that's what a godly man would do, and he wholeheartedly agreed. Then we got to the street where I had previously told him I lived. He asked which house was my parents'. I gave him a fake house number far away from mine and had him drop me there. He wanted to come inside. I told him I needed to let my parents know about God sending me a husband before he could beat them. I said it would take a few days. Come back tomorrow. He said, I'll give you a few minutes, but then we need to be on our way. I told him to drive around the block so I could have time to pack my clothes. He nodded and finally opened the car door. I ran to that house's door, waved to him until he drove away, then sprinted to my house where I lived alone. Double bolted my door and put the couch in front of it that night. Never saw him again. I did not call the police, though I wish I had. I moved in with my boyfriend a few days later, and I insisted on waiting at work until he could pick me up every night. Yeah, that's a little weird. I think this guy was just lonely, And so maybe that's why he was like, oh, God sent you to me. And he thought he could get away with it or something like that. Doesn't make it right, but maybe that's what he was thinking. Sorry, I'm going to get another drink of water. I originally picked this article out because I thought it was going to be like short, but some of these stories are long. He was waving at me. To give some background information, this event occurred a little over a year ago, and I still haven't been able to even begin to get over it. I'm a 22-year-old, 5'4" female, and at the time, I was 21. My family and I had recently moved to a new town that was a fair amount more rural than the town I had previously lived in, and our new house was a large ranch-style house with a basement. I was home from college, and my parents had left for the week to celebrate their wedding anniversary with their friends. I lived several hours away. Before I continue, I'll give a quick layout of the house so that you'll be able to imagine the setting a bit more clearly. There were 3 doors which led into the house, one of the front porch, a sliding glass door on the back porch which did have a lock and floor-length curtains for privacy, and another door on the other side of the wall from my bedroom which led into the garage and basement. When you walk out of the bedroom and you turn, you can see all the way across the house. Kitchen, living room, dining area, to the door of my parents' bedroom and the stairs leading up from the basement. It had been a few days since my parents left, and I hadn't had any problems. They had sent me a couple of messages on Facebook letting me know that they had arrived to their friend's house safely, and we were having a good time. The day had gone well, and I was sure to check that that I locked all the doors of the house once the sun started to go down. It was about 11 p.m., and I was doing my nightly routine of laying in bed and messing around on my computer when I suddenly got this sinking feeling of dread. I felt as if I was being watched. It was summer, and we didn't have AC, so I had a large box fan in the window blowing the cool night air into my stifling hot room. Once the feeling settled over me, I decided that I should remove the fan and close the window just in case. Once removing the fan, shutting and locking the window, and pulling down the curtain, I felt a bit better. However, I still couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I lay back in bed and tried to continue what I was doing, though I didn't put my headphones back on. After a few minutes, I began to hear something that sounded like light scratching. I was still in bed, listening to the sound, trying to pinpoint what it was and if I recognized it at all. Our new house, although relatively close in distance to our neighbors, had a fair amount of forest around it, so I thought the scratching may have been an animal or someone's dog that got loose and wanted to come inside. After a few minutes, the scratching stopped and everything returned to silence. So I figured that I was probably right and that it must have been an animal. But my relief was short-lived as soon after the scratching stopped from the other side of the wall, and I began to hear slow footsteps descending into the basement. No, come back. Sorry. I'm trying to find my place again. This is when I knew I was completely effed. There was no way I could get out of the house without walking past the basement stairs. We didn't have a house phone, and at the time, I was in the process of getting a new cell phone because mine was broken beyond repair. I sat there for a few seconds, wondering what the hell I should do. I know that I would need to get out of the house as soon as possible, and that the more time I wasted, the worse it would be for me. I contemplated popping the screen out of my bedroom window and jumping out, but it was far enough off the ground that there was a good chance I would end up getting hurt if I did. Not to mention, if I jumped out the window and hurt myself, I wouldn't be able to run for help. And I would be right next to the door that whoever was in my house had gone in through. So I decided to very carefully and quietly open my door and peek out from the corner. And if the coast was clear, I would make a mad dash for the front door and sprint to the neighbor's house. I very slowly opened the bedroom door, letting my eyes adjust to the darkness of the house before keep running around the corner and looking to see if I was safe to make a run for it. What I saw nearly made me vomit. I'm sorry, guys. I know I keep reading really fast. And I keep fumbling over my words. It's just, I'm so tired. As I scanned the house, I noticed that something was off. I squinted hard as I looked over at the basement stairs and was able to make out the shape of a man. What made it worse, he wasn't just standing at the top of the stairs. He was fucking crawling up them like some kind of nightmare creature. I quickly backed into my room, shutting and locking the door as quietly as I could. I didn't think he'd seen me, but there was no way that I was going to make a run for it now. My only choice was to pop the screen and jump out the window. Come on. Sorry, it's acting stupid. Stop being dumb. Sorry, guys, I was getting pissed. As I was unlocking and opening my window, I heard the handle to my bedroom door turn. Once the man realized that it was locked, in a sickeningly sweet sing-song voice he cooed, "I know you're in there." This was followed by a loud cackle, and what I can only imagine was him throwing himself at full force against my door. I ripped the screen out of the window and flung myself out. I landed wrong on my right foot, and I was sure that I hurt my ankle, but at that time I couldn't think of anything other than getting as far away as possible. I got up and ran as fast as I could to my neighbor's house, knocking on the door in a panicked frenzy and ringing the bell over and over. I looked over at my house as I was yelling for my neighbors to let me in, and I swear to freaking God I could see the man standing at my window waving at me. That's so scary. I've heard this story before. My neighbors finally opened the door after what felt like forever, and I managed to explain well enough what was going on for them to let me in and call the police. I stayed with them until the police arrived. The police searched my house and found that the lock to the basement had been picked and that the door to my bedroom was hanging off its hinges. They weren't able to find the man anywhere. And because I had only seen him for a split second in the dark, I couldn't provide them with a good description of him. Of course, I got into contact with my parents immediately, and they hurried home. The police took my statement and searched the area for the man, but of course, they came up with nothing. After this event, my parents and I were sure to add deadbolt locks to the doors leading into the basement and the door leading out of the basement to the rest of the house. They also helped me pay to get a new phone. What really bothers me about all of this is that nothing was stolen. There wasn't even any evidence that the guy had looked through anything while he'd been in my house. Because the scary thing is, he was after you. That's the God honest truth. He was looking for you. And that was the last story, by the way, guys. I forgot to add that because I didn't know if it was the last story or not. That's the last story for this article. Like I said, I've heard this story before, and if I saw somebody crawling up my steps, I would have had a panic attack. That scares me so much. That scares me even more than just somebody breaking into my house. Just somebody crawling after me. No, that scares me way too much. I don't know how you were so calm. I would have been freaking the fuck out and screaming and telling this motherfucker to go away. I don't even know if this guy was human. He may not have been human. I don't know. That is so scary. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll leave the link down below if you want to read it for yourself. I'm sorry I was talking so fast. And stopping and everything. I'm so sorry about that. It's just how I am. I like to read fast so I can get as many stories into the video as I possibly can. These stories were super long. But I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.